Everyone, we got some breaking news in regards to Donovan Mitchell and the Utah Jazz. Per Woj, it is being reported that Utah is listening to trade offers for Donovan Mitchell, and Donovan Mitchell may be traded, which is very interesting because the other day, this was a completely different tune. Now, obviously, the Utah Jazz decided to blow it up, and they traded Rudy Gobert for an incredible trade package, right? And Donovan Mitchell was rumored to not be requesting a trade, and that the Utah Jazz were not looking to trade him. But things change. Every minute things change, and thus it looks like Utah is at least exploring the possibility. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean that they will trade them, but it looks like they're at least listening to offers, listening to packages, things along those lines. Obviously, Kevin Durant is the grand prize for most of these teams, and I imagine that is the trade that teams are still trying to pursue. But a lot of these like mid-tier teams that may be wanting somebody like a Kevin Durant, but don't want to give up the farm to get him, maybe they shift now to a player like Donovan Mitchell, like a team like the Toronto Raptors, right? Let's say that, they don't want to give up a Scotty Barnes in a trade for Kevin Durant, but maybe they'd be willing to give up a Pascal Siakam or like an OG Anunoby and Gary Trent, something along those lines. Maybe package those two along with some draft picks, and it would be easier to obtain a guy like Donovan Mitchell. The point is that Donovan Mitchell is a lot more obtainable and is not going to demand as big of a return as, say, a Kevin Durant. Donovan Mitchell, as great as he is, he's still undersized. Defense has been a real issue for him. He's been a defensive liability in many cases, which is very fascinating because Donovan Mitchell came into the league as a defensive player. Like, that's what I think is funny. He emerged into this scoring option. Now, I do think that Donovan Mitchell has the potential to be a good defender. I just think that with Utah, he has to do everything, right? He has to put up 25 to 30 a night in order for them to score and win. And if he has to guard several guys and exert all that energy, he doesn't have anybody else to help him score. So if he goes to a team like, Toronto or something along those lines, then he has a guy who can help put the ball in the hoop, and so maybe he doesn't have to exert himself as much and can be a better defender. It's just a thought. But one of the teams that immediately emerged on the announcement that Donovan Mitchell may be on the trade block was the New York Knicks. Now, the New York Knicks are expected to quickly put a package together to trade for Donovan Mitchell, which I think is extremely interesting and might not be the best thing in the world for the New York Knicks. Now, the New York Knicks have like 22 draft picks and a bunch of assets and things like that to get a trade done. So I do think like the Knicks is a team that could make that trade. They've been linked to trying to trade for Donovan Mitchell in the past. The problem is they signed Jalen Brunson, who they're hoping is a Donovan Mitchell light, right? Or a Donovan Mitchell-esque, maybe even be on par with a Donovan Mitchell. The problem with going and getting Donovan Mitchell to pair with Jalen Brunson is you have two 6-foot guards that both do the exact same thing. Like, I don't know how that's going to work. I think that is going to be an absolute disaster unless you have like two other guys that are just like, their only job is to just be defensive stoppers, then yeah, maybe. But in reality, they don't have anybody like that. It doesn't make any sense. Like if they had a guy like, Rudy Gobert who's down low and can just block shots and stuff like that, and they had, a couple wing guys that could be really good and just be lockdown defenders, right? Have two guys, maybe even if they're slightly undersized, but like two 6'8" wings, 6'9" wings that can play both power forward and small forward position and just defend, and like their only job is to defend, maybe. But I think that this backcourt would be horrendous. I think that they would be great scoring wise. They'd probably put a lot of points on the board, but if they're putting up say 20 each or 25 each and they're giving up 30 each, like you're going to lose more games than you're going to win. I don't think the Knicks make a lot of sense for Donovan Mitchell anymore because they went and got Jalen Brunson. If Jalen Brunson wasn't a Knick, then yeah, absolutely. I think that makes a ton of sense. But now I don't see the logic in that because like Donovan Mitchell, if he was like 6'4", 6'5", and it was like, okay, like he's a guy, he could play shooting guard, if he doesn't have to score as much, maybe he can be a better defender. He's got the tools, he's got the wingspan, stuff like that, but he doesn't. Him and Jalen Brunson are nearly identical. And so that is issue for concern, in my opinion. But, let me know your thoughts with the Knicks. But beyond that, Miami. Miami obviously is a team that has been linked to Donovan Mitchell for quite some time. The Heat could desperately use a guy that could score, and they would be a much better fit for Donovan Mitchell than anybody else, right? They have the defense, they have the guys, they have everything you need. They have the culture, the coach, all of that stuff. The only thing that they don't have is that go-to scoring option. Jimmy Butler single-handedly almost took them to the NBA Finals and was a shot in and out away from basically being in the finals. But he needs somebody to help him score. He's not a guy that can be scoring 40 points a game every game and do everything that you need from him. But to have a guy like Donovan Mitchell, you have the pieces around you to make up for his lack of defense, and he can just be a scorer. You just tell him, hey, and Jimmy Butler is very selfish in the sense of his stats. I know he's has a bad reputation, but he is. He doesn't care if he puts up 30 a game. He just wants to win. He is obsessive with winning. And so if Donovan Mitchell comes in, I don't think there really would be an issue. As long as Donovan is putting in the work, that's all Jimmy Butler wants. He just wants people that are willing to put in the work. But the Miami Heat is an organization that wants the same thing. Like, you can't even be on the team unless you pass their physical tests. And they expect you to be a certain body weight and all this stuff. Like, unless you pass that, they won't even let you play for them. So that's why Jimmy Butler is perfect for Miami, because he's got that insane work ethic. But beyond that, he's within an organization that expects you to be like Jimmy Butler. So any player that's going to go there is going to be expected to do that same thing. Donovan Mitchell may better fit in with the Miami Heat because he's going to be held to that standard. He's going to be held to that star level, and he's not going to have to do everything, which is, I think, a huge benefit. Miami, like I said, they obviously, if they could get Kevin Durant, makes all the sense in the world, but in reality, they would have to give up or gut their team to make that happen, and they can't even trade a guy like Bam, which, not saying that they would either way, because, you have Pat Riley, who is just obsessed with Bam. Like, that's his guy. I don't think he would make that trade anyway. But if you can pivot and go and get a guy like Donovan Mitchell, I think that would make more sense. Again, he's a guy that's much more obtainable than a Kevin Durant. But it's going to be interesting to see how many teams all of a sudden get in the Donovan Mitchell sweepstakes, because I think there's going to be a lot of teams that wanted Kevin Durant but are like, I don't want to gut my team and give up, our entire house and farm and everything just to go get him, when we could get a guy in Donovan Mitchell that could do a lot of the same things that we need. So that could be something that a lot of these teams begin to start pivoting to. And the Kevin Durant might be drying up, which I think could affect the Brooklyn Nets heavily. Maybe we'll dive into that in another video, just independently, because I do think that that's an interesting point of discussion in and of itself. But anyway, as always, this is a discussion, so I want to hear from you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comment section below. What do you think about the Utah Jazz now willing to trade Donovan Mitchell? Now, this isn't confirmation that they're definitely going to, but it's interesting that now they're at least listening to trade offers and stuff like that, and I wonder if this is something that maybe Donovan Mitchell and the Jazz spoke about privately. Not everybody comes out and publicly says that they want to trade. A lot of it is internal. Maybe Donovan was like, hey, look, if you can trade me and you can send me to a good team, then I'd rather do that rather than wait for a rebuild. Maybe it makes sense for the Utah Jazz. They're like, hey, we kind of hit the restart button. Yeah, Donovan, but do we really want him to ride it out for 4 or 5 years, whatever, while we do a rebuild? I think it's just best for them to just hit that button now and just move on, because you're not going to be a contender this year. You're likely not going to be a contender the next, 2-3 years. And all you're doing is just wasting away on Donovan Mitchell. Utah's never been that go-to destination for stars. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how things shape up. But what do you think about it? Do you think, where would you like to see Donovan Mitchell go? Would you like to see him go to the Heat, the Knicks? The Knicks thing, like I said, that really concerns me. I'm not a Knicks fan, so I could really care less, but I just, from an NBA perspective, because the Knicks being good is always good for the NBA, but I just don't see that working. Donovan Mitchell and Jalen Brunson, they're the same player. Donovan Mitchell is, in my opinion, the better of the two, but still, they're the same player. They do the same thing. And at least that's the thought process why the Knicks went and signed Jalen Brunson. But I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how it all shapes up. Let me know all of your thoughts and opinions down in the comment section below. One last little shameless plug is I did start As It Stands Lakers. It is a channel just like this, dedicated to only the Lakers, because the Lakers are my favorite team. And on this channel, As It Stands, I talk about all teams, all sports, stuff like that. We have football season coming up, so I'm definitely looking forward to that as well. And I just wanted to make a dedicated channel to the Lakers to give the ins and outs. Now, all the big stuff, all the big news and stuff, I will still post here on this channel. But if you want all the ins and outs and just rumors and theories and just discussions just strictly on the Lakers, link down in the description or in the comment section. Go check out the channel, subscribe to the channel. I'd really appreciate it. That being said, hit that like button. Helps me out a lot, lets me know you enjoy these types of videos, and I truly appreciate it. If you're not subscribed to the channel, hit that subscribe button, followed by the bell notification. Stay up to date with all things sports. Join this wonderful community and all of our discussions. I'll see you all in the next one. Thank you.